Hi everyone, welcome back to Which is the Moon. I'm your Monday hostess, Natalie. This week's topic, we are talking about servitors. Now, a lot of people have been requesting this topic and we've kind of stayed away from it because, I don't know why, but since we're wanting to get deeper into Magick, we thought we would go ahead and give servitors a talk this season, and so here it is. Now, a lot of people want to know what is a servitor exactly, so I'm going to talk a little bit about what is a servitor, how to create a servitor, and what happens after that, because a lot of people are like, okay, what do you do with it once you're done? So here's the deal on servitors. I like to think of servitors as an advanced form of sigil magic. In that, servitors are essentially a thought form or energy life form that you create within the astral to do your bidding. It takes on a life force of its own within the astral plane and can sometimes even manifest itself in the physical. So that's why you have to be very careful when you're working with servitors, because a lot of people that aren't real familiar with what they're doing will create a servitor and then just don't know what to do with it once they've done it for this purpose. Now, in my experience, once a servitor has been created and has fulfilled its function, it ceases basically to exist. Remember that a servitor is a thought form. It's a creation that you create, sort of like, I hesitate to use the term imaginary friend, but I've seen that used in terms of servitors. It's more a living thought form that you create, a thought or a creature that you focus on so intently that it takes on a life of its own, and it's built and designed for a specific purpose. So, for example, if you wanted to create a servitor to protect your children, say your children are going on a camping trip or on a field trip or something like that, and you wanted to create a servitor to protect your children, then you would essentially create some sort of a creature, almost a sigil, or create a sigil that represents this thought form that you would then bring to life in the astral. That would be so strong, you're so focused on this, and your energy is so intent on this purpose that it takes on its own life form and then acts as a guard to your children while they're out on this trip. Now, usually, this is something that you don't discuss with someone because it is a thought that's very personal to you. And in touting that you get this servitor, I feel, my experience, is that it somewhat takes some of the power away from the servitor if you talk about it or you mention it to other people, because it is your thought energy. It's just so strong that you've given it its own personality, essentially. It's similar to what you do with a gree-gree bag. A gree-gree bag, to my understanding, is considered kind of a living thing, that it has to be fed and that you have to keep it going. With a servitor, you feed the servitor by focusing on its task. So it could be one thing that's kind of a one and off sort of thing, where you create a servitor for a specific purpose. Okay, so for example, in that case, like I said, your kids are going on a camping trip. Maybe you have an upcoming court case and you're wanting some protection or some guidance, or you need something that's going to give you increased confidence. So you may create a thought form that's for that specific purpose, for that specific moment. Once you're no longer concentrated on that, then it ceases to be. It sort of dissipates. But remember that once something is created, it's never fully gone. It just, if you are no longer focused on it, it sort of loses its power. So, essentially, what you're doing with a servitor is you're creating this creature, this character, this being in your mind, and it could be like a sigil form. One of the things that I saw was somebody recommended making a talisman out of metal, specifically because metal conducts energy very well. And since thought forms are nothing but energy that you're putting into creation, this is a specific thought form that you're putting a lot of thought into and a lot of your energy into, so that it becomes sold for this purpose. So basically, you would do three things. You would construct your thought form. In other words, you're going to create this creature or this thing or this advanced form of a sigil, like a talisman, and you're going to focus on that. So you've created this, and this now represents this thought or this desire that you have. Okay, so to protect your children or something like that, to give you strength, to give you courage, to keep away an enemy or something like that. So you create this being in your mind of what this is going to look like. Then you would charge it, and when you charge it, basically what you're doing is you're either through actual words, which I find more powerful. It's much like doing any kind of a spell. I will incant that and say, this is what I want, this is what your purpose is, da, 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 da. But basically you're going to charge it by giving it its purpose. Once you have done that, then you say, I send you forth to fulfill your purpose. So I have never found a need to do any kind of thing to dissipate the thought form. Once it's served its purpose, then it doesn't necessarily need to, be done away with, so to speak, sort of like we would the remnants of a spell. We bury them, but we consider that a completion of the spell. So once I have charged and cast my servitor out, I don't really see a need to worry about, declaring that it's dissipated or anything like that. Once it's served its purpose, it usually does. Now, if it is a servitor that I am creating for a continued purpose, like protection or luck or, goodwill or something like that, then you have to focus on that. So that would be where the purpose of the talisman comes in. So it's kind of like what we wear with our religious jewelry. There may be something on there, like for the example, this one has my owl, which I consider my totem, which in a way, I have a thought form, a servitor that is in the form of an owl. That's my spirit animal in my mind, and that is always with me and is always guiding me. So it's like a guide. Remember that things form in the astral plane before they form here on Earth. As above, so below. So things are already working in the cosmos before we see the manifestation of that in the physical world. And so by having that protection in the astral, by picturing my spirit animal with me, I've turned that into a thought form. Not to say that your spirit guide is a thought form or a servitor that you created, but in my practice, I have created one that takes the form of my spirit animal, and it serves as a protection to me and kind of keeps stuff away from me. And so I find that there's not really a need to do that. Now, again, part of that's going to always remain. Once you've created something, it's never really fully destroyed. Some of that energy is there. Remember, energy can either be created or destroyed. It can be formed. And basically, that's what you're doing. You're taking energy and you're forming it into this, and it just sort of shifts form. So it may be attenuated, or it may go into a parallel universe, or it may go into some other being. But as long as you're not focused on it, it's not going to be there. So if your servitor is something that you're going to want to be continuous, you're going to need to be focusing on that on a continuous basis. So that's where having that talisman comes in, that this person, Jack Dirt was the person. And I'm going to put a link to some different websites on here that I found useful for myself when I was learning to work with servitors. I don't create a whole lot of them, to be honest with you. I had created the one that's in the form of my spirit guide before I even my spirit animal, before I even knew that's what that was exactly. So it's just kind of always been there. So I will put some links down here for some people that had some relatively decent information. I encourage you to do a little bit of research, but basically if you're not adept with sigil magic yet, you would not be ready for servitors. So you want to make sure that you are comfortable with creating a sigil and using sigil magic in an effective manner, because essentially all you're doing with the servitor is creating an advanced form of the sigil, whether it be a physical creature in your mind. It could be some sort of a, you could picture it like the swamp monster, okay? So it could be the swamp thing, it could be King Kong, anything that takes on that physical thought in your mind that serves a purpose, and King Kong may be a good one because he's very big and he's very lumbering and he's very strong and protective. So if you're creating a servitor to maybe keep at bay any trouble that's coming at you, or I hesitate to say this, but I do know people that use servitors to go out and create a little havoc, so to speak, with people that are causing them trouble. So whereas I might do a binding spell, I know people who will create a servitor to go out and just basically get this person out of my life. And I'm not saying you can't do that, I'm just saying that's not my choice. I find that bindings or putting up some sort of a protection for myself is far more effective for me. I'm not here to judge anybody, but I have seen servitors used in that way and hear about that pretty often, that people will create a servitor to go out and create a problem for somebody else to get them off of their own back. But, in a case like that, I can see where, something like King Kong might be used. But I mean, that's just an example. I'm saying this is something that you're creating in your mind. You get a good, strong mental picture of what it is that you want and how it's going to serve you, because clearly your servitor needs to be suited to its purpose. You know, you're not going to create a servitor that is designed to go out and kind of whisper good thoughts to you for a job that looks like, you know, I don't know, a corpse or something like that. You know what I mean? It needs to be suited to its purpose. You would want your servitor to appear in the mind of that person as someone who's a professional and ready for the job, because you want them to be whispering to them, hey, this person is good for this job or whatever. I say whisper loosely. It's like they're going to be giving you that aura of, and really a servitor may just take on a light form that's noticeable to other people. If your servitor is strong enough, sometimes it may be detected by other people, but it's not something you want to talk about. And again, just because I feel that when you talk about your magic to other people and they're thinking on your magic, unless it's you guys are working together and you're focused on making the spell work, if other people are kind of like, oh, that sounds kind of silly, it dampens your magic. Same thing with a servitor. It's one of those things that it is a thought form of yours, and is your creation, it's your thinking, it's your idea. So you want to make sure that you keep that thought to yourself so that it doesn't attenuate the strength of that thought form in any way. So that is my spiel on servitors, their purpose, what to do with them, how to make them work. You want to be real familiar with sigil magic and be comfortable with creating sigils and art forms and things like that that are magical to you, and be really good at focusing your intent before you work on trying to create a servitor, because I have seen things that have gone wrong. And one of the things that I can think of is in Dion Fortune's book. She talks about a thought form that was tormenting her, and it would appear to her as this particular animal, and as it turns out, it was nothing but a servitor. The problem was it was a thought form she had created based on her own fears. So you need to be very careful. We believe that our thoughts, being energy, are very powerful, and so you can create a servitor without realizing it's working against you. So one of the things that I have found is that if you're being tormented by something, our first instinct is to think somebody is doing this to me. I don't think that we often think to ourselves, maybe I'm doing this to myself out of my own fear of failure, fear of non-acceptance, whatever the cause is. Oftentimes, fear creates great servitors without even realizing what you're doing. So if you're being tormented by a specific thing that keeps showing up, look deep and see if perhaps it's something you've created on your own that has some sort of meaning to you. For example, it was a wolf. So, we often talk about the wolf at the door, right? And we're always afraid of the wolf at the door, that the bills are piling up, and, we refer to it as that. I don't know if that was her situation. I'm just saying I think that's what it was. And so that actually would make sense to me. I would think that, having bills that you can't pay and things coming due and not having enough to stretch, that in being so fearful of that, you may have created a thought form that takes on the form of a wolf that's tormenting you in your dreams and, in your thoughts during the day. Look at that and see if this is perhaps something you created yourself longer there. So keep that in mind, kids, but that may be something that you want to look into. So get out there and see what you can do. And thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful week.